This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. And again, if you want to text us a question, we've got Dr. Ben Powell on the line. You can text us at 806-680-2790. Now, the head of the Free Market Institute, Dr. Ben Powell, we've got him on the line right now. Dr. Powell, how are you today?
Well, Matt, I'm not too bad, although I'm not happy that I'm joining you by phone and not in studio, but realize that I'm one of the lucky ones who can go on earning my living here in Lubbock while we're under this lockdown, and a lot of your listeners are probably doing a lot worse this morning when they want to get out to their jobs and can't.
I agree, and me and my wife are the same way. We both have our jobs, and I count myself lucky every single time, and man, this is a big free market issue if you want to look at it that way. This is something that did you ever think you would see something like this in your lifetime?
No, a government lockdown of the economy, taking away our freedoms to go out and earn a living, to interact as consumers with the businesses, and also just in our own personal freedoms and socialization. No, we have to remember that a lot of people will contrast the trade-off of the economy and dollars with lives, but trade-offs are everywhere on here, and people's economic livelihoods are related to their health, too, in other ways.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's one of the things that I've been saying is that we're looking at something where the cure is worse than the disease.
Yeah, that quite possibly could be the case. But I think we need to give people the freedom, including businesses, but just everybody the freedom to figure out new ways to interact. The argument for flattening the curve all makes sense, but the government's imposing a lockdown. It's not clear how much of the flattening is coming from that versus just voluntary social distancing. I mean, we're seeing how businesses adapt to try to make their employees and their customers feel safe. I think we need to let them reopen and be creative about coming up with ways that we can all continue to interact.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's time to reopen. If we don't, we're not going to have a country to go back to when it opens. That's what it seems like to me, and I'm so glad. I've been looking so forward to having you on this morning because you're the perfect person in Lubbock to have on to shed some actual truth and light to this situation that we're in. So tell me this, Dr. Ben, if it were you, would you have closed down our country when this, a month or 6 weeks ago?
So, Dave, no, I don't think myself or anybody should have the authority to be able to close down the country. Now, I do want to be careful and contrast that from various voluntary close downs that happen. I think individual businesses responsibly deciding to close until they can safely operate or to readjust their operations is perfectly compatible with individual liberty and wise in the situation. Particularly here in Lubbock, my university, Texas Tech University, where I work, I think has been pretty wise in the policies that they've adopted to dealing with it and moving online temporarily when you have a university with nearly 40,000 students in a city the size of Lubbock where everyone's away from spring break. Coming back, that's the type of thing that could have swamped local health care resources potentially. And it was probably wise to shut it down on its own, but not from a government order, but because of the responsible decisions taken by university leadership. I contrast that with government decisions to shut down small retailers and everywhere else around the city as so-called non-essential. There's no planner who knows that. And the risk of, virus spread in a lot of these places is very small.
Now, Ben, I want to ask you this. We're looking at a situation where the big point was to flatten the curve, and obviously the curve's been flattened. This is not about stopping the spread. Sooner or later we're going to have to open the doors, and the spread's going to happen. I mean, people are going to get the virus again. Since we have flattened the curve, don't you think it's about time for it to happen?
Absolutely, Matt. Remember, there's a bit of moving the goalposts going on right now by politicians around the country. We were all told that we were going to overwhelm hospital capacity, either ICU rooms or number of ventilators or just number of doctors and nurses available to service people. Well, we've seen that hasn't happened. And whether you can attribute that to the lockdown or just normal social distancing, the fact is that we're in the here and the now. The curve's been flattened in a lot of places. And certainly, one-size-fits-all approaches to our country are inappropriate. The situation in Lubbock is vastly different than the situation in New York City or Boston, where I'm originally from. And we need local communities to be dealing with their own particular circumstances and not having blanket statewide or nationwide orders on this anyway. But we also need to be thinking about that. How do we free up the entrepreneurial process to help us deal with this disease that is going to be around and is going to continue to spread? And, you know, how we got into such a mess in the first place is a litany of government failures, not free enterprise failures, whether it's the CDC monopolizing testing or FDA regulations that don't allow for flexibility in development of new drugs, treatments, licensing of doctors that prevents them from moving across state borders. We've seen relaxations of a lot of these things during this pandemic, and hopefully we can see more of those relaxations and making them permanent, so our healthcare system becomes more flexible to deal with challenges like this.
Well, and affordable.
Yeah.
And affordable, absolutely. I mean, when we see a failure in the healthcare system, this is one of the least market-oriented industries in the United States, where government regulations and controls are most pervasive. And for the most part, they've hindered the ability of that industry to quickly respond to this. Luckily, it's been liberalized a little bit, and the healthcare workers are doing a good job. And we need to see more of that so that we can adapt and deal with this as we go on with our lives.
Well, we're talking with Dr. Ben Powell of the Free Market Institute at Texas Tech, and we do want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Dr. Powell, our text lines are open at 806-680-2790. Dr. Powell, I'm very, very interested for you to look in your crystal ball and tell me how much damage has been done to this economy already and what it's going to look like when we reopen it.
Well, Dave, unfortunately, myself and other economists don't have a crystal ball, but I can say that, you know, it's obvious the damage has been massive in the short run here, but the reopening, I'm not expecting. People talk about the shape of the recovery. Does this look like a V or more like an L in terms of economic output went down and then it stays down and slowly recovers as it bounces right back? I don't think we're bouncing right back, and that's not just due to government policy. If they reopen everything tomorrow, we're not returning to the world of February. We're returning to a world where a lot of economic interactions are harder.
It's a new reality, isn't it?
Yeah, the restaurant. And by the way, this is part of the argument of why you don't need a lockdown. It's precisely because the costs and benefits to people acting as consumers and businesses have changed such that they have to better account for the risk of this disease. And that means, you know, restaurants operating at, you know, whatever it is, half capacity, a third capacity so that you can keep social distance, that doesn't generate the revenue or the service that a restaurant did in February. Airlines aren't going to be operating the way that they were in February. Now, some businesses will be able to bounce back quickly, but not all. I think we're going to have a long, slower road to. I guess it will be recovery in a sense because it'll be the best given the new situation that we're in, but we can't expect things to turn around real fast.
Okay. Well, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Dr. Ben Powell from the Free Market Institute at Texas Tech University. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO, talking to Dr. Ben Powell with the Free Market Institute out at Texas Tech University. And Dr. Powell, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, right now, the oil prices have plummeted to negative numbers, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have closed down the economy and nobody's using oil right now after a dip because of Russia and Saudi Arabia deciding to get in a trade war at the wrong time.
Yeah, well, let's be clear that the price of oil isn't really going to be negative. It's kind of an oddity right now, you know, what we call the futures contracts, right, where you buy a contract now and agree to take delivery on it. These are for the May contracts that expire today,
right.
Meaning if you own it, you actually have to take delivery of oil. And, of course, a lot of people who own these contracts are speculators who can't take delivery. So just before closing day, they all have to dump their contracts. And a lot of people who do use the oil and usually be taking the deliveries, their supplies are full right now. They don't need more because people aren't using it.
Right.
So we have the oddity where you actually have to pay to get rid of your oil right now. But I think last time I saw the June contracts, the price was still ballpark $20 a barrel or something. I don't know what it adjusted to this morning.
Yeah, June was still up there, but right about the same spot as, I guess, Saudi Arabia, about 18 or so. But yeah, and that's another oddity of, I guess, the markets is that we're talking futures, and that's the difference between, I guess, the stock market and the commodities.
Well, you know what?
The thing I want to know is, what is this doing to the budget? The state of Texas is so dependent on oil for tax revenues.
Well, oil and sales tax revenue, right? And sales tax revenue's got to be way down too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Government seems to act as if they don't face a budget constraint, whether our national or our state governments on this, that they can just keep spending away while other people are hurting and tightening their belts, and they're going to be in for a rude awakening when this money comes in. But, Dave, earlier you asked about the crystal ball, and, market prices are the best crystal ball we probably have, and what $20 oil prices into June, July, August was a little bit more, I think, last one I saw. That's giving your predictor of what people are thinking economic activity is going to be looking like going out a few months.
So now I want to talk about the unemployment. Unemployment right now, I think they said is pushing 20%, somewhere in there. And so what we're looking, I think 10% of the we've been losing almost 10% of the employees per month, I think. Per quarter. Anyway, point being, unemployment looks terrible. When things open up back up, some of the jobs will be open, but not all of them. Donald Trump has closed, immigration for bringing employment in from other countries. Is that going to help at all?
No, listen, the latest immigration one, this is a classic, just like Obama during the 2008 crisis. They've got a crisis, they've got a policy they've wanted to do for a while. They use the crisis as an excuse and slap it in. The immigration restriction isn't going to do anything to help our situation, and in fact, it'll make our situation worse because a lot of the immigrants who come in have skills that are just different than most of the native-born population. The unemployment's come because government heavy-handed orders telling people you're not allowed to work. Lifting that, we're going to see unemployment rates. When I say that we're not going to have a speedy recovery back to February, that doesn't mean a lot of the jobs won't come back. Most of the jobs went away because we said you can't do them. Reopening will get most people back to work. Now, then sorting out what businesses can survive in the new normal, that's going to be different, and some of them are going to close, and some unemployment's going to come from that, and people will have to be reemployed. But there's not a lack of demand in the kind of like crisis of confidence of consumers sense. It's been a supply recession that we've gone into. It's because government has said you can't supply things. Taking away other workers who would like to supply us things, meaning immigrants, isn't really anything to do with the heart of our problem right now economically.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to take another quick break, Dr. Powell, but I do, my question coming back is going to be more from a positive nature, trying to look at the positive of this. Does this open the door for a lot of entrepreneurs coming out to take maybe, to fill in some of the gaps we're going to have? But we got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Dr. Ben Powell from the Free Market Institute at Texas Tech University. This is Matt Martin. We got Dave King at News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO, and we're talking to Dr. Ben Powell from the Free Market Institute at Texas Tech University. And Dr. Powell, like I said, does this open up some opportunities for those that are looking to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, of course it does. We're entering a situation where we all need to find a new normal, a new way to do lots of lines of business, and nobody knows the answers to this. No government planners, certainly not me. What they need to do is be discovered in the market process where entrepreneurs try out ideas, see if they can make a profit doing it, see if they can find ways to make their employees safer, their customers safer, while still delivering services that we want. I mean, we've seen this all around us, even in the confines of lockdown. As your businesses like DoorDash expand and restaurants innovate of how they can do curbside and other things here, and they need to be freed to rediscover how to do these things in other ways as well. And that's what the market process is about. It's a discovery process. And precisely why you can't centrally plan an economy in normal times or during a health pandemic.
Hey, even liquor companies that distill liquor are now making hand sanitizer.
Well, there are some downsides to this. Whiskey supply might get a little low. But I'm sure, and this is the beauty of the price signal, though. As people get the hand sanitizer, all those plants will be turning back around and distilling our favorite beverages again. And this, we need to let the price system work. State anti-price gouging laws that operate in some places, prevent these signals. Prices are signals to entrepreneurs. They tell them what is necessary, where, and how badly. And if people can make a profit doing it, they'll fill that void.
Okay.
That's the beauty of the market.
Dr. Powell, we got to go. Again, that's Dr. Powell from the Free Market Institute. We thank you for coming. We'll be right back.